Before anything, whatever you think of me, just erase it. Any thoughts, any prejudices, just anything you feel about me, just completely wipe it off your memory and just listen to this whole entire story. What you may think of me may not be the entire scope of who I am, where I come from, what I do, how I feel, being raised in Brooklyn, moving to Queens. Everything about me in my life explains who I am now. So in order to fully understand who I am, stop, take a breath, and just run it back from the beginning. Now, of course, we all heard the story, a kid trying to make it out the hood, trying to help his single mom because the dad's not around. And, we hear that story many different times throughout, celebrities' lives and other people's journeys and how, they made it by doing what they love. This story is kind of different, mainly because I did have my father around. But it wasn't like you thought. It wasn't that whole perfect mode where, dad is loving, mom and dad is married, and you're living a happy life and everything is going swell as a kid. It was more like I got to experience him for a couple of years and then poof, everything changed. So of course, obviously you're watching this documentary and you don't know who I am. You probably don't. So let's take it back to Brooklyn. Brooklyn, New York. Obviously the place where I was born. Well, I was born. I was born in Brooklyn. Come from Haitian parents. I come from a city called Crown Heights. Of course, when you think Crown Heights, you think of, oh, that neighborhood is bad, and you think of violence, and you think of gangs, and but for me, Crown Heights was different. It was good. I never experienced a gang problem before. I never had, one of my friends get robbed or something. I never saw Crown Heights like that. But yeah, Crown Heights wasn't made for everybody's playground. It wasn't a place where people wanted to, come and hang. It was more like, will I survive today? I was fortunate enough to see the good side of Crown Heights. I saw, the pizza place around the block. I saw my dad's barbershop a few blocks away, my aunt living like 2-3 blocks away from my father's barbershop. So everything that I knew of as a kid was around me. I kind of had this perfect life. I had, a brother and sister, so I got best of both sides. I have, a bigger sister who, annoys the hell out of me, but I also have a brother who I can, be boys with. Like, that's my guy. And I had a mother, obviously, who loved me dearly, and I had a father who, owned a barbershop, so I get cuts for free. But also I get to witness what he did for a living, and, at one point he was my superhero. By the age of 5 or 6, I want to say, everything that I thought was perfect went terribly wrong. And you know what? To this day, even though there's been many people that told me to like forgive myself and realize that it's not me, but there's still that calling in the back of my mind that's saying like, yeah, that was you. You put this on yourself. As a kid, you always imagine mom and dad being together all the time and, having siblings always being there, and you're gonna grow up to have this perfect life. But then around that time, mom gets sick and dad is not there anymore, and your sister is obviously crying and your brother is starting to develop and you start wanting space, and everything starts crumbling and you don't know what to do as a kid because there's not an adult that you can ask what's going on, because they're obviously going to lie to you because you're a kid. They're not going to tell you the full truth. But then at the same part, there's not a kid you can talk to, because around my area, everybody had a father and mother who was loving and happily married. So at the age of 6 or 7, what do you ask yourself? Like, what do you do? Do you keep it in, which is obviously what I did, or do you let it out, which is also what I did. At the age of 6 or 7, I was basically that kid who was always angry. I was always in the corner crying. I was always the kid that wanted to hurt someone because I felt the hurt inside, but I couldn't reflect it on anybody else. I can't reflect it on my mom because she's going through so much. I can't reflect on my father because he's not there. And I can't reflect on my brother and sister because they're going through things that I pretty much can't explain. I can't understand it. So yeah, Brooklyn was really hard. It was a loving place because I got to learn so much as a kid. I got to experience, going to PS 91. I got to experience, being cool with my principal, even though that sounds weird. The neighbors, everybody knew me. The pizza spot my mom used to go to every Friday to get us a box of pizza. The good old times with the Nintendo 64, my brother and sister. I had neighbors coming to my house almost every week, going to the barbershop, walking there every summer. It all changed. And Brooklyn, I would say today that Brooklyn really taught me how to, be strong, how to fight, personal shit that's going on in your life. Many of the trials and tribulations that I went through after Brooklyn, I probably wouldn't have, got through them if it wasn't for the experiences I've been through with Brooklyn. So of course, obviously, you wanted to learn more about why I left Brooklyn. Around the age of 7 or 8, I can't fully remember, but Dad, one day, I go to the barbershop, just like I always do. Me, my brother, and my mom. When Mom has to work, she drops me and my brother to Dad's barbershop to, hang out with Dad while she go and make some money. So one day she went to go do that, and like his fellow coworkers was telling us that something had happened. He just collapsed while at work, and that was the first time that it was weird, because when you see a parent as a superhero, you think nothing will ever happen to them. And I know it's like, of course things happen, but as a kid, you don't think about different outcomes. You just think one thing, like, Dad is Dad, he's a superhero, and he'll be there forever. So we received the news that he went to a hospital due to him smoking and drinking alcohol. And, a couple weeks go by and he comes back. He's back, and just like I thought he would, he's a superhero again. There's nothing that could destroy him. Then 2 weeks later, the same thing happens again. He's back in the hospital. But this time, he catches what they call amnesia. For those that don't know what amnesia is, it's pretty much when you lose part of your brain's memory. Like, you can't remember shit. So you could imagine not only me having the notion that my father's a superhero, but now not only is he not going to get better, but he can't remember who I am. See, it's different when you have a father that's not there, but in the back of your mind, he might be alive. So if you was to ever find him, you guys can catch up and reminisce on old times, and he gets to know who you are, you get to know who he is. But at the age of 7, how do you deal with the fact that your father is still alive, but he doesn't know who you are and he'll never remember you? So it was tough. It was one of those things where you never forget. There was one moment my mom had to settle a case with my father, because at the time, my mom, I'm pretty sure she already knew prior, but she had learned that my father was married in Haiti to another woman and had kids with her. And then had a kid with another woman while pregnant with me, if that made sense. My mom was pregnant with me, and my dad got another woman pregnant around the same time. So we're at this building, and she's settling a court case with him. And mind you, I haven't seen him in like 3-4 years. So of course, me and my brother is like, in shock, like, yo, that's Dad. So, let's go say hi. Let's go see how he's doing. And mind you, at the time, we didn't know what amnesia was. We're kids. Amnesia is like the biggest word in the world. So we go to see him. We say hi. And my dad says, hi guys, I don't really know who you are right now. Um, go back to your mother. And those words literally stuck with me for the rest of my life. And ever since then, I've cried from the age of 7 to about 16. So you could imagine being, let's say, 13 and or 14. I'm sorry, because that's when you start high school. You can imagine being 14 and tears is coming down your eyes, and who do you talk to? You can't talk to a guidance counselor because they don't fully understand what's going on. You can't talk to students because, let's be real, kids are assholes, and yeah, it was tough. To make matters worse, a couple months go by, and I don't think my sister and mother know this. So if they're watching, I know. Um, I wake up one night in the middle of the night, randomly had to pee, and my sister comes up to me and she's like, "What are you doing up?" And I'm like, "I heard something, but I have to use the bathroom." And she's like, "Go back to bed." And I told her okay, and she goes back to the bathroom. And as I'm about to go, back to my bed, I hear something. So I turn around and I like peek through the bathroom because not only do I have to pee, but I hear something. And I see my mom on the bathroom floor, and she's like gagging, and her body's like out of control. She's doing something weird. And my sister's like, "Mom's gonna be okay. I'm calling the ambulance." And I walked back to my room and not thinking anything of it because I just lost my dad. I can't lose my mom, so I'm not gonna think that way. Um, she gets to the hospital and she comes back. Turns out it was a stroke, and she's back. She's home. And then not too long after, it happens again. And the second time, from what I know now, she almost lost her life. She was in a coma. And I don't want to mention names, but someone in my family had told her that she wished she died. And that, forget being a kid, that to me now hurts worse. Because these are the people that are supposed to support you the most. These are the people that are supposed to be there for you. And for them to wish death upon the one person I love the most. So yeah, after those two incidences with my mom and my dad being very sick and not being there, and his first wife, taking him back, we had no choice but to move to Queens. So, and that was the end of Brooklyn. All right, now we're out to Queens. I'm about 8, 9 years old. Um, kind of scared. How do you leave everything that happened in Brooklyn behind? Your dad not coming with you. He's very sick, doesn't know who you are. Your mother having 2 seizures and strokes, almost losing her life, new school, new friends, new everything. Everything had to switch. To be honest, it was bad for me, but I think it was worse for my sister because my sister was older. She was 13 at the time when we moved to Queens. So you could imagine her being in like 8th grade, going into high school. And these are the people that are like, around 8th grade, high school is when you make the closest friends, I guess. Being that kid in Queens, it was like, how do you tell somebody that your father has amnesia and doesn't remember you, or your mother having 2 strokes and almost losing her life? How do you tell that to kids who don't know who you are, or a guidance counselor who is simply there to get you through school, not get you through life. Especially at third grade, the biggest problem is as a 6, 7-year-old should be how I'm gonna pass the Regents. It shouldn't be how is my father doing, or is he still alive, or is my mom gonna make it for another 5 years? Like I said before, from like the age of 7 to 16, I was crying every day. So I'm in this new school, I'm crying, and people don't understand what's going on. It's like on the one hand, they want to ask me what's wrong and like, how can I help you? But at the same time, you're new here. I don't even know your name. So what's the point of even asking you? So Queens was difficult the first few years. I had to adjust to a whole new house where rules was different. Back in Brooklyn, nobody really cleaned. I mean, yeah, we cleaned sometimes, but my mom would bring home pizza every week, or Chinese, and the neighbors was all friendly and everybody knew each other, and we had the kids playing outside and everything was lovely. But in Queens, it was different. It was like, yeah, there was kids still playing outside, but you kind of had to know somebody in order to play around with them. Otherwise, it was like you were isolated. Everybody was kind of to themselves. Everybody had their own clique. And I guess that's everywhere. I don't want to say that's just in Queens, but just put yourself in my shoes of, going through all that and then trying to, join a clique or something. Around the age of 12 is when I got adjusted to Queens. It's been a few years. Obviously I got used to the kids playing outside and I got to learn who they are. I got used to cleaning every Saturday morning, like being tortured. Not tortured, I don't want to say tortured, but, having an uncle who was kind of like the step pops, even though that sounds nasty, but somewhat of a father figure to step in for, the absence of my father. He would force me to work out. He would force me to clean the house, watch TV at a certain time and go to bed at a certain time, and everything a father would do. So if he ever was to watch this today, thank you for being that dad even though you wasn't trying to be. So around the age of 13, I'm still coping with my father not being there, and my mother not being in the best shape. So around 8th grade, I decided I'm not going to let everything that happened to me become who I am. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to cover the sadness. I'm going to try to stop crying. I'm going to try to be a different person. And this was around the same time I had saw Eddie Murphy's Delirious. I realized that comedy was so hilarious. It made you feel like the world had stopped and everything is funny. And so that's exactly what I did in 8th grade. I decided to indulge in comedy. For those that know, one day I decided I was gonna bring a pillow to school. Brought a pillow to class, slept on it. Teacher called my mom. My mom was pissed off. But what my mom doesn't know was that that was my coping mechanism. That was a way for me to stop crying, to stop thinking about dad and if he was ever come back, if his memory was to ever reappear and he just bust through the door and say, guys, I'm home. To this day, I'm still bringing comedy with me. I've started in 8th grade, and what you see now on Instagram and a little bit on YouTube is me making jokes, is me laughing about everything and trying to keep a smile. That's where I get the whole persona of, oh, he's a quiet guy, but when he does talk, it's funny, or he's always positive. Like, I've never seen Shamar so angry. I've never seen him yell at someone. I've never seen him fight. It's not because I don't want to. Of course I want to speak out, and I want to, speak out my mind and talk about different things. It's just when you put yourself in a position where your father is still here but doesn't remember you, or a mother who almost lost her life, it's hard to speak out. It's hard to stay positive, but I guess I do it. And I don't want to say like my positivity is fake. It's like, it's more of, there's no point of showing you my depression, because at that point, what can you do? Recently, I was reintroduced to my father. At the age of 16, I had my older brother from my father's first wife, my older brother from that side, so my half brother. He had contacted me, and, he hasn't seen me in the same amount of time as my father had. He contacted me and said, "How are we doing?" We being me and my brother. We told him we're good. Life is going great, and, mom is doing well. And at that time, he had told me, dad is still alive. He's still great. Do me and my brother want to go see him? And it was hard to say no. This, from 7 to 16, my 7-year-old self was astonished to see him. Like, of course, let's go see dad. Even though I knew that he had amnesia and didn't know me per se, but how could I say no? And so I took the bait. I told my older brother, like, yeah, let's go see him. Let's find out where he's at. Coincidentally, he's on Jamaica Avenue. For those that know Queens, he was on the nursing home that's like not too far off the Ave. So the same strip that I passed through every single day, my father was right next to me, not knowing that for 11 fucking years, he's right there. And I had no clue. So, me and my brother, one day we get dressed and we go see him. And he's in a wheelchair and he looks old. I mean, that's what happens to people who get older. You look old. My brother, is like, "Hey, Dad, you don't remember them?" And my dad is looking at me strangely, like, I don't know who he is. And, after like 5 minutes, he eventually says, "Oh, yeah, I know who you are. Like, how you been? How's your mother?" I'm like, "Yeah, she's good." But I can just tell in his eyes that he was just saying, yeah, he knows who I am, because you have everybody asking you like you don't know who he is. Like, put yourself in his position. If there's like 50 people asking you like you don't know who that is, eventually that means you do know who this person is. So you're kind of forced to say, yeah, I know who that is, even though you for sure don't know who that person is. So, me and my brother just sitting there awkwardly, like, what do I say to you? Like, I know you don't know who I am. What is there to talk about? Like, yeah, I'm about to graduate high school. Like, yeah, I grew up. Yeah, mom is doing fine and she's still alive. That's really about it. And so, we left, and my brother informs me that, we can go visit him anytime. To this day, it's still kind of hard to believe that I never went again. I just never went back. You would think, for 11 years of not finding him and to know that he's right next to you, you would think I'd go every single day and try to force him to remember me. But I realized at 16 that I had just gotten over you. Like, I just moved on. There's no point of reopening a box that I don't want to open, on top of you not remembering me. There's no point of forcing you to try to remember it, because it's not like my father was forcing himself not to remember me. He technically couldn't. His brain is so messed up that he just can't. And so I kept telling myself, every time my mom told me, go visit him, go see him, I told her no. Or I would tell her yes and then not go. So, I get to college and life is pretty good. I'm not thinking about him. I'm not thinking about the bad stuff. Just more about getting through these next 4 years and getting a degree and making my mom proud. I'm not gonna lie, the first month was terrible. The first month, as a freshman in college, you kind of get scared because it's new, it's different. A lot of your friends that was in high school, they all go to different places. Everybody goes on campus or everybody goes to different universities. So, what once was in high school where every day after school you would go hang out like to a pizza spot or you go to track meets and hang out. Now in college, I just don't have the time because I'm busy. I'm growing up. I got a job now. I have to take care of myself. Around October, me and my brother had made a plan to go see my father. Like after 2 years of me saying no, I had finally made the decision to say yes. Like, let's go see him. Let's try it again and see what happens. That Saturday morning, my brother goes to Comic-Con. I told my brother, it's okay. You don't have to go see him. We'll go see him another time. But I'm going to go with my older brother. And I'm getting dressed. Like, I throw on my pants, I throw on my socks and everything. I took a shower. And my older brother texts me. And he's like, hey, what's up? How you doing? I'm good. I'm getting ready. Are you, like, on your way? And he told me, hey, don't post anything to Instagram. Don't post anything on Facebook yet. I'm confused. What are you talking about? Dad died this morning. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to feel. I remember my room was set up where there's 2 beds on this side and the other half of the room is just empty. Just the straight box. And I was sitting in a chair right in the middle of that empty box. He gave me the news at like maybe 11. I sat in that chair, did not eat, did not blink. I didn't move for the rest of the day. My brother came home excited. Comic-Con, it was great. All these comics and superheroes. And I remember I told him, I said, bro, you gotta sit down. And I had told him, I said, bro, sit down. There's something I gotta tell you. And I told him, like, yeah, you know how we were supposed to visit Dad today. And he passed away. He died. And so, for those that know my brother, he's not very emotional. He's that kind of guy that, if bad shit was to happen, he'd just dust it off. He said, oh, okay. That's fine. And he got up. He said, I'll be back. He went to the bathroom. And it was the first time I ever heard him cry. The very first time. I think what hurt me worse was that I couldn't cry. I couldn't. From 11 to about 5 p.m. is when my brother came back and I told him. So about 6 hours, I was sitting there, startled, like, how the fuck did that happen? Like, for 2 years, I said no to not seeing him. And the moment I said yes, he's gone. And I sat there, just kept sitting there. And my mom came in around 8 p.m. or like 9. It was at night, I remember. She said, hey guys, what's up? My mom does this every time. She comes in the room and she says hi to us. And, obviously, Mom, you're being annoying. Like, leave us alone. But me and my brother was quiet. And my brother always plays video games. I'm always on my phone. So you could imagine a mom coming in a room And her two sons, one of them is sitting in the middle of a room in a chair, and the other one is on his bed, just staring into space. And the TV's not on, there's no phone around, there's nothing going on. She walks in the room and she says, "Hey guys, what's up?" And we can't answer her. And she's like, "Guys, what's going on?" I told her, I said, "Dad died." And the moment she touches my shoulder, I burst into tears. I let it all out. It pours out like a fucking river. And I cried for the rest of the night. The next morning, my mom wakes me up, takes us to IHOP. I can't even eat. I can't do anything. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I can't feel. So it was like that for the next year and a half. And I've had, girls who I was dating, and I would tell them that. And they, obviously, they'd feel sorry and, comfort me. But then after a while, there was one girl I'll never forget. She told me, "Yo, it's been like 3 months. You got to get over that." What she didn't know was the 18 years of bullshit happening. So what now? I know this documentary may seem like, I'm trying to make you cry or make you feel bad for me, but it was more focused towards seeing everything bad happening and, focusing on the good. I look at myself now at the age of 21 and I realize that life is beautiful. I have a mom who's 51. Like, you could imagine her doing 3 jobs at 51. Like, how do you do that? A sister who's doing good, a brother who's doing well. Life is good. Now you see me on YouTube. I'm doing comedy on YouTube and making videos. I'm also doing, me and a friend of mine is doing a whole nother show. We just reached 2 years. So, life is great. As far as my dad goes, I visited his gravesite and I let it all out. I just told him everything that I wanted to tell him. And after doing that, like, this burden had lifted off. So yeah, now I'm in a good place. Now I'm, doing YouTube, as you guys see. I'm doing comedy, and it's no longer a coping mechanism to cover up depression, but it's more like, this is what makes me happy. This is what I do for a living. And who knows, one day, I hope to bring it to the top, be one of the best videographers out there. Back then, I used to tell myself that I do it for my mom or I do it for my dad if I made it big. But this time I'm doing it for me.